Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me all right. This is Malia Villegas, and I'm the director of the Policy Research Center here at the National Congress of American Indians. We're really grateful for your time. We know everybody is doing really great work, and we appreciate you taking some time. But we think it's just important to orient you a little bit. Some of you may have been to our Tribal Leader Scholar Forum before. Others of you this may be your first time. Others may have been to the NCI conferences. But it is a little bit of a different space, and we just want to make sure that we give an opportunity for you to learn a little bit about the goals of this and to help support the best presentation and connections for you when you're on site. So I'm joined here with my colleague. I'll have her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, you've seen me on several of the emails, Sarah Petalski. I wish I could introduce you in person now to Joel Chastain, who has also been extremely instrumental in helping us steward this work. He is currently working at our front desk, helping take in all the calls that we get from across Indian country and governments every day. So we are just so blessed to have you all here and really eager to share with you a little bit more about what this both the Data Partners Pre-Conference and the Tribal Leaders Scholar Forum this year will look like. So thank you for taking the time out today.
Awesome. All right, so we've got a bit of a presentation. Those of you who are on the phone, like we said, we're going to have this emailed out, and we are hoping that the recording of this will be able to send out the link just in case you'd like to take a look back. But we are going to be focusing on the theme for the 10th annual Tribal Leader Scholar Forum, but we do hope this video recording does serve as a resource for future orientations to the space here. So we'll go ahead and jump in, give you a little bit of a sense here. So a brief history of our Policy Research Center that hosts the Tribal Leader Scholar Forum. Our vision is really centered around three elements, and it's really to provide tribal leaders with the best knowledge and information to inform their strategic decision-making and policy-making in order to inform the best futures for our people, but all of that through a lens of a native culture and knowledge. And so it's really that piece. We don't often take a stance on particular issues as the Policy Research Center, but we try to synthesize, bring together information to inform those tribal leaders in their work, but really with that lens of native culture, understanding how culture matters, providing tools on that front really to get to the best set of outcomes. But it comes from a belief that research and data is a critical lever in the exercise of tribal sovereignty, and that's why this space was created 10 years ago by tribal leaders acting through the National Congress of American Indians, and we're overseen by an advisory council made up of a variety of experts, community leaders across Indian country. So that's really our work, and the Tribal Leader Scholar Forum is unique on that front in terms of not being solely an academic conference, but really one that's about sovereignty and that exercise there. So the other thing to keep in mind is NCAI as an organization, which has been around since 1944, is we have three conferences, at minimum of three, I should say, major ones that we convene every year. We have our Executive Council Winter Session, which takes place in February, March, here in Washington, D.C. always, and that's an opportunity for tribal leaders to come and meet with Congress people, with members of the President's Cabinet, to really talk about federal advocacy and federal legislation. We use that opportunity then to build and inform the kinds of research that we try to highlight in our mid-year conference, which takes place in different locations around Indian country. This year, as you know, we are in the Midwest region, St. Paul, Minnesota. There we usually average between 900 and 1,200 participants, where our winter session is much smaller, between 400 and 500 participants there. And then that will lead our work at the federal level to our work at the Mid-Year Research Forum, all feeds into our largest gathering, which is our annual conference, which just like mid-year rotates around Indian country. This year we're going to be in San Diego, California, and we can get upwards of 3,000 to even 4,000 participants at that gathering, anywhere from tribal leaders to tribal program staff to county and state officials. So all of the work that we're going to be doing that you folks are going to be helping to steward at the mid-year will inform a policy agenda that we will be supporting tribal leaders in passing through resolutions at our annual conference. So just to give you a sense of context about how we hope this information has utility and traction at the tribal level and across Indian country here. So this is the 10th annual. We're pretty excited that you all are going to be involved with this space here. We've been doing this since 2006. And it's really one originally that was designed to bring in academics from universities and other research institutions to present to tribal leaders as tribes build their policy agenda. You know, what do we need to know? What does the science say about a variety of topics, and how to leverage those institutions of higher education in support of the sovereignty work that NCII helps to steward. Over time, and with great developments in the science workforce and who our researchers are, we have really seen the space transform to really showcase the work of Native scholars and also others who have a demonstrated commitment at the tribal level. So it's not just academic researchers presenting to tribes, but it's really those partnered kinds of research relationships, looking at how research is being applied. And I'm going to use that word several times as part of this discussion today, or this presentation, because that's really what we'd like you to keep in the forefront of your mind. How can we take the wonderful work that you all are doing in different ways and think about how it can have greatest application, dissemination, use, and development at a tribal level? We all want our work, I think, to have the greatest impact, and we really hope that you see this space as one where you can talk with community leadership, community tribal citizens about how best to have your research and insights have that deep application and utility at a community level. So that's really how the forum has evolved. And Sarah's put up some great terms here, exploration. At the same time, we really want to feature work that's in development and has some initial findings or full findings. We also want some of you to see this space as an opportunity to test out and try out different kinds of research questions, ideas, ways of thinking about developing analyses that could be useful, conversation, application, dissemination towards this goal of innovating and using research to its greatest effect in a tribal context. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of kind of the overview on the day. So the Tribal Leader Scholar Forum is itself one full day of programming, and it's going to be Tuesday, June 30th this year. But prior to that, we do tend to try to secure a pre-meeting space for many of our partners, where we will also feature some presentation, and that's going to be scheduled for Sunday, June 28th this year, and we're going to be going the afternoon from 1:30 to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon there, and that's going to be our pre-meeting, our pre-conference, and we've called it a Data Partners Gathering. It's largely our PRC partners, not just folks doing work in the data field, but we are going to be focusing on data conversations. That one is going to be more structured the way that we wanted some of our Tribal Leader Scholar Forum breakouts, and I'll talk about that in a moment, more as a working session and kind of a round table structure. In the past, we've had kind of typical conference setup presentations, and there will be the opportunity for those of you who've been invited to speak at that to present. But the idea, again, in getting to an applied conversation is how do we generate provocative presentations that provide the participants an opportunity to then say, okay, given what we know about X, juvenile justice, Head Start, early childhood education, the innovations that are coming out of these domains, how do we develop a data policy agenda? How do we develop better tools to engage communities in some of these conversations? How do we advocate for particular approaches at the federal level? So we'll have a set of questions that our moderators for each of these sessions will be talking you through, and as we have the more specific teleconferences that Sarah and Joel have helped to schedule, we'll be talking with you and helping to shape, sharing with you what some of our initial ideas are about those one or two key questions that we'd like you to think about as you shape your presentation. But that's the space. Our leadership here has said to us, and this is not reflective to you folks, but that we really want to move away from what they call talking heads syndrome at our conferences. So that's our challenge, and so that's part of why we're doing this conversation here. So we'll have that pre-meeting and try to get some great, we really want to try to get some policy priorities out of that conversation. And then the Tribal Leader Scholar Forum is, we'll have a plenary or a general assembly session where last year up in Anchorage, we had upwards of 800 people in the audience. It was a full house, wherever we happen to go around Indian country, that number will fluctuate, but we're asking folks to anticipate at least 400 in the audience, and we'll see what we're anticipating a great turnout for St. Paul. So it's a great opportunity, that General Assembly, and then we will break for lunch, and that's usually the first opportunity that our participants will have to be exposed to our poster session. And we have, I think, at least 15 posters already scheduled, and tribal leaders love the poster sessions, opportunity to get to know students and programs in a very kind of a quick environment there. And then we will go into breakout sessions from 1:30 to 4. And they will be concurrent, so participants will have to choose, but we'll give you a quick sense here in a moment about some of our post-conference materials to help you understand how we're hoping to disseminate all of the wonderful work that you're doing, even if people don't get to participate in your particular session. We have a number of goals around getting your work exposed more broadly. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of the Sunday pre-meeting and then the day of. We've also invited some of you who are going to be in the pre-meeting to also participate in the poster session. And if those of you who are in breakouts also have an interest in doing a poster, like I said, we've got a pretty full range right now, but let us know. We want to make sure we do as much as we can to help disseminate the important work that you're doing and to get exposure to our audience to this work. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of the day, I hope. Okay. So that kind of just gives you a bit of that overview of the Data Partners pre-session. The registration is not required here. It's pre-meeting for all participants. So thinking about who may be coming, those sessions are really open, and we tend to have a lot more local partners, so people from the Midwest region who may not come for the full conference of NCI come to the pre-meetings. There will be other pre-meetings going on. We encourage you to keep an eye on our website for the full agenda so you can kind of get a sense. We try not to overload it, but there's so much demand. We're doing a lot of horse trading right now around the agenda just because there's a lot of demand to be featured. So we hope you folks feel like this is this is a good opportunity here. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of some of the work that we're trying to do, but it's really going to be focused on, looking at measures, building data capacity, and some of these data priorities, strategic data priorities. We've got about 3 that we're focused on here as the Policy Research Center, some of our goals for the year that we'll share, but we'd like to really enlist our partners in thinking about collectively how can we all do more around improving data at a tribal level and community level for our American Indian Alaska Native communities. All right, and so this is the theme. We appreciate Sarah putting together a lot of this wonderful visuals. We've had a lot of really good feedback already for this theme, and I will tell you we've had the greatest response to our submissions this year, largest number of submissions that we've had, which is really great. We know our dissemination is getting better with social media. Sarah's really taken the lead, so I really want to acknowledge her work and her vision on this front. So the theme we've come up with, as you know, is Back to Our Futures, Researching for Justice. And just a quick moment about this. So back to our futures. We've had a lot of conversations with some of our partners here. Most notably, I'll acknowledge a longtime mentor, Dr. Cheryl Crazybull at the American Indian College Fund, the executive director there, and we had a really neat conversation several months back about the need to have conversations about futures and future visioning and thinking strategically about how we plan forward in our communities. And what you'll see in the past history of our Tribal Leader Scholar Forum is this conversation about planning. How do we use data and information to inform community planning and work in different ways? But the idea of back to our futures is this notion of, you may have heard rebuilding in some contexts, remembering, really thinking about what anchors our planning, which is our cultures, our ways of life, our values. And so all of you have been, selected because of your emphasis on both equipping tribes in the best way to do some of this future planning, but with that emphasis on cultural ways of life and thinking about how culture matters in such deep ways. And again, I think that's what's unique about our space, is that we do try to create as much conversation about how to really engage, and as some folks at UCLA are talking about, operationalizing culture in this planning process. The Researching for Justice is a bit of a play. We really wanted to emphasize justice work, and that's not just juvenile justice or criminal justice, it's justice broadly. It could be environmental justice, data justice, educational justice, really thinking about all of our work on that front, and this notion of playing with the word of research, that at some level our communities know, what they want to have happen. How do we enlist research tools and invoke our cultural values on that front? So that's really what we've been thinking about with our theme. And so just in visual form, kind of what I took you through a moment before, we'll have that General Assembly, that plenary session. And this year we're focused on early education, early childhood education, early learning. We have a real large focus on youth here. Many of us were just at the White House convening, looking at Native youth investments, so it made sense that we focus some of our work here. And so I'll give some opening remarks as the director, and then we'll have 3 to 4 panel presentations. The vision this year is to have more of a kind of a comfortable, as opposed to standing at the podium, we've talked about even having couches up on stage, more of a, not informal, but more of a conversation about how do we take some of this information forward. And we always have tribal leader responders who are designated and invited. We'll have those 2 identified, people who have familiarity and demonstrated leadership in this particular arena, to listen to the presentations and then to give, 10 minutes of response, what they heard, what resonated with them, and then we'll open it up to the audience to have a broader discussion. It's less, there is a Q&A potential, but in many instances what you'll see is people giving comments at that level. People who bring handouts, our folks love handouts, so if there are some things, but we will project any presentation up. And then, so as you can see the audience, we've had, as large of 800 to 900. We're anticipating between 400 and 800 at this gathering. So it's a real great opportunity in the morning session. And as I mentioned, and there's Desi from, I think this was Lincoln, Nebraska. We've got Desi on the phone. So she's our poster child for the poster session, hey? So we've got some of the poster specs here for those of you who are going to be doing some posters. 36 by 48 inches is what we're looking at. We'll hope to have the, you can kind of see the easel set up. What we're going to try to have is the backing, so we can have the push pin kind of approach that many of you may be more used to at the academic panels or conferences that way. So as you'll see, we have the foam backing and the easels provided there. We do hope to have an opportunity for the posters set up at an evening reception as well. So there's multiple opportunities for folks to get exposure to the ideas. So that's our plan at this point. We'll update you as the agenda gets finalized here. And then just some visuals on the breakouts. You can kind of see the room set up. We've got kind of a little bit more theater seating with a couple of the tables in the front. In some of the sessions, we've had requests for kind of the U-shape, more round table discussion kind of space. Our real hope, again, like with the data partners piece, is to have these presentations definitely providing information, but really leaving participants with some provocative questions, ideas, things you want to pose for the discussion that will be moderated. And again, we will have a tribal leader who will moderate the session. There will be those of us as staff there to support logistics and things of that sort and to take notes. But we also have had a request this year to have both a tribal leader moderator and a Native youth moderator, and we really love that idea. Again, trying to incorporate our young people and give them opportunities for their own professional development, and many of them just can't wait to engage with you all in the variety of work. And so we've shared with them the topics that we've developed these panels around, and we've identified those who have a real familiarity or an interest already in working with you folks on that. So hopefully that'll be a good experience. And again, we're looking at 4 to 5 panelists max, so that we can keep, these are 2.5-hour sessions, so that we can keep the presentations focused and informing ultimately the discussion. That's really where we want to get to. So we're looking at 15 to 20 minutes. I know that's not a long time, and it is a challenge to, get the wonderful substance into that space. But we really do want to leave both Q&A time, but really time. What we've tried to think about, and we'd love your thoughts on this, is to actually, with the moderation and the facilitation, identify 1 to 2 key questions, again, that we have the moderators pose to help draw the thread between and across your presentations, and to get folks to think about what, for instance, are the policy applications for the things that they've heard. That's, as I said, our annual meeting conversation, what we're always trying to push. So, there may be resolutions, for instance, that come out of some of the discussions for our annual meeting, ideas about joint statements that might come out, or other collaborative work. And a tribe would say, wow, that's a great program. I'd love to know how to bring that to our community, or we'd like to participate more. We have some great work happening here. And so those relationships kind of get seeded. We say there's between an average of 50 and 100 participants, depending. Like I said, we're going to have concurrent sessions, so people will get to select some. We'll try to get to multiple sessions, so you may have people moving in and out. So don't feel, slighted if that happens. It's just that there's a lot of stuff to see on that level. So in terms of handouts, we suggest preparing for about 60 or so. Okay, so just to kind of summarize some of what we've gone through in terms of recommendations, as I mentioned, the handouts, our people really love them. We will be having a conference app this year, an application like we have had last year, and in prior years we've done jump drives with all of the pre-meeting materials like your abstracts and PowerPoints. This year they will be available via the app, which is a great way for folks to be able to open them while they're in the session and scroll through. So some of the deadlines and things that we've asked you to honor in terms of getting us your materials, that's why we need them ahead of time, is to make sure that they're available via the app there. But if you do want to bring some handouts, we definitely encourage that as a way of getting the information back to people's home communities and some of your contact information. The presentations, you see us using a bit of the Prezi here. We will not have internet access, unfortunately, in the rooms. The costs are just very prohibitive for our meeting, so PowerPoint is usually the better way. But we've had presenters come in and really talk story with folks, across different handouts or different ways. So don't feel that you have to be wedded to a particular style. Our participants love to engage and really think with you about some things. But this is an opportunity for you to really bring your passion and to engage people, who are working on these issues on a daily basis. And so really think about some of these terms of place. I've mentioned we're in the Midwest region. We have 12 regions as NCAI, and you will have representatives from all of the regions at this conference. So anything you want to bring about, even if your work isn't specific to the Midwest, talking about how this work applies in different places, models, how to take some of what you presented that's particular to a place and think about adapting it. That would be really appropriate for this kind of context. Again, anything you have around culture and how to think in different ways, many of our participants will be very eager to engage on that front. And scaling up or scaling out, in terms of the usability of some of this work is some of the other kinds of conversations we're hoping to prompt. All right, so in terms of logistics, some of the reminders, and we'll have some emails going out reminding on this front as well, but for the panelists, we're asking you to email your presentations by June 5th and 3 to 4 sentences of bios. And those bios we will be providing to the moderators for the session, so that'll be how you'll be introduced, so just kind of keeping that in mind. And we're looking, again, that's 3 weeks prior to the event, so we can load everything appropriately before we do leave here to head to the site a little bit before everybody else. So again, that deadline of June 5th, please do your best to honor that. And, I understand I've been a presenter at many conferences. I know you tweak things, right up until the minute. But as much as you can do to get us as final of a version, and, we can try to do what we can do if there are major changes. But that will really ease the burden on our staff. Registration is now open for the conference. We do encourage participants to register and stay for the whole event. If you are just coming for the day of your presentation, our CFO would still love you to register, but we can honor, a one-day kind of a waiver. So you just let us know what you would need on that front. We'd love for you to stay and engage, but we understand that, budgets are tight. So that's what we're looking at. Our conference hotel sites do fill up pretty quickly, so we encourage you to go to our website and take a look at our host hotel. We have a few other overflows, but we are anticipating a good number in St. Paul. And we wish we had, some support on the travel and hotel front. Unfortunately, we don't in this space. So we know it's a lot for you folks to come and spend time away from your families, but we do hope it will be a useful space for you. Okay, so again, here's some of the key contacts. Joel is our Wilma Mankiller Fellow, wonderful young man who's been helping us out with a lot of the correspondence with all of you, and we really look forward to introducing him to you all on site. And then, of course, Sarah Patalski, who's joining me today, is our team lead here in the PRC. We've got some of our social media information at NCI PRC. Hashtag TLSF 2015. We've had a lot of hits. We've been doing some really great infographics that Sarah's taken the lead on. So we're trying to build our momentum up to the event to, again, get some good dissemination, and hashtag back to our futures. On the specific panel teleconferences that we're hosting here shortly, we'll be able to give you a little bit more firm information about the dissemination. In the past, I just wanted to say real quickly, we've done a conference proceedings report, which has included the abstracts you submitted, a copy of that, and a copy of any of the PowerPoints that you folks have provided to us after the conference. It's a very large document. It's very hard to even post on our website. We've, sent it out via Dropbox and other things. So we're looking at other approaches to dissemination this year from more of an executive summary of that report that gives some top line takeaways for tribal leaders and policymakers. What did we hear at the conference? Kind of a brief sort that we can circulate. So that's something we're looking at, as well as a potential podcast. We've just started having conversations with our communications team to actually record each of your presentations where we have your permission to do so via audio, and have those then available for folks who may not have been able to attend as a way to get out the information. So, just be thinking about that, and as we set our panel teleconferences for the more specific panels, we can get some input from you as to whether that's something you'd be interested in us doing. And if not, we understand some of this research is, emerging and not appropriate for that sort of dissemination. We would definitely make sure to talk with you before recording and disseminating anything so that it's appropriate on that front. So I think that's where we wanted to end this, and then take questions. We're going to unmute your microphone. So if you've muted yourself, you can make sure to take that off. If you're not hearing yourself, that may be why. But if you do have a challenge, you're trying to ask a question and you're not able to, just go ahead and use the chat function and we'll try to figure it out or repeat the question here. So and panel specific information we'll try to keep to the teleconferences just to respect everybody's time. But if you do have something that is urgent that you feel like you'd like to raise here, But thank you for letting me go on and on. We're super excited, again, to meet with all of you. Some of you we've met face-to-face, others of you we followed your work, and really hoping to have this be an effective kind of time for you as well. So I'll stop there and we'll open it up.
So we already do have a few quick questions here in the chat box. One is about how many attendees are expected for the poster session if we are to provide any handouts, the recommended number that way.
So there's two kind of spaces that, again, we're aiming to have the posters be exposed to participants. One is usually at the lunchtime hour right after general, where people will be streaming out of the General Assembly, going to grab some food and coming back, and we encourage folks there. So I would say in that space, I would anticipate between 150 to 200. And then in the evening kind of space, I'd say possibly another 100 or so. So I say if you plan for about 200 to 300 handouts, you'd probably be in some good shape there.
Another question is, are we able to advance our PowerPoints presentations according to our speaking time, or are they timed?
So we will have timekeepers in the sessions who are helping to moderate that, and as we said, it's 15 to 20 minutes that we're really asking you to keep to and to honor. As part of the discussion and Q&A, there may be opportunities for you to bring up other kinds of information that you may not have gotten to in the presentation. We will normally have you advancing them on the screen. We'll have them, anything that comes in ahead of time, we will do our best to have preloaded that way, but we'll have just a general kind of timekeeping. Is that kind of, hopefully that was answering the question.
There was also another question as to whether the Sunday Data's Partners workshop is open to the public.
It is, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, all of the pre-meeting sessions, which will take place on Sunday, do not require registration. So we often do have a lot of people who come just for that day, who may not be able to afford, or due to work and other things during the week cannot make the rest of the conference. So we've had a really good turnout, again, depending on where I think in Reno we had between 50 and 60 people at our Data Partners meeting, some of whom weren't necessarily running an institution and wanted just to come and find out about the topics we were talking about. Last year in Anchorage, we had a little bit of a smaller group, I think, because we had a lot of competing things and just the convention site itself. So I think I would say between 40, I would say average about 40, and some came and went at different points. So.
Great. We did receive another question just about if a group submitted as a panel, if you could respond to that.
Sure, yeah, and we know that was one of the formats, and in the ones that we've only really, I think we only selected one or two that actually submitted as a full panel, and those were the ones that actually had panelists from either different institutions or even different regions, and it's very hard to amass your own panel that way. The only one actually that comes to mind is a tribal college session that we saw from 4 different tribal colleges from totally different states. So unfortunately, we've had to really, link panels as an individual presentation along with others, just to get range on there. So what we realized some of you folks did submit proposals, that had 3 to 5 presenters, and ideally, you would have liked to have your own session. So what we suggest is, we really have to leave it up to you to say who is going to be the best presenter, but you really do only have those 15 to 20 minutes. So, some people have brought larger groups and had maybe 2 of the 5 that they might bring really lead that presentation, but then be available throughout the rest of the day to engage in different ways. Like I think there's one group that has proposed 2 university researchers, but then they said if we, had a fuller space, we'd have these 3 tribal partners. My advice on that front is bring the tribal partners. I mean, a lot of times the tribal leaders want to engage and hear from the tribal representatives alongside of the academics. But it's an opportunity, I think, to engage not just during the session or during the 15 to 20 minutes, but as part of the larger discussion, as well as during the General Assembly, the poster presentation. We really think that people who come and engage throughout the rest of the day do get a lot out of it, but unfortunately we can't offer more time on the actual session, and we know that it can be a cost issue, so just keep that in mind.
I also want to add to that if there are folks who are interested in trying to arrange a meeting with our various committees or subcommittees who are really within the purview of our legislative department, this is an opportunity that we are more than willing to explore. We can't promise anything, of course, because our ledge staff really sets the agenda pretty early on, as well as the people who chair the committees and subcommittees. But they are arranged by topic. We encourage you to look on our site, or we can help direct you. Please just contact myself or Joel, and we can help have, steward that conversation if that's something you would be interested in.
Yeah, and our legislative team has been involved in the selection of the proposals, and many of them, they said, oh wow, we need to get these folks at committee, or it'd be great to have them, participate. So those committee meetings are going to be Monday and Tuesday night, I believe. So following the breakout sessions, you could just go directly, for instance, those of you working in early childhood education could go and attend the education committee meeting. Sarah's point, though, we can't guarantee that you can be on the agenda to speak, but again, in the, as the committee's starting up, as you're there, and you can network with folks. But some of you are working on issues that will definitely be pertinent to the policy conversation, and those are, again, the meetings where tribal resolutions or NCI resolutions get developed and shaped for the annual meeting. So another opportunity to have your work inform the policy agenda there. So great point, Sarah.
So we have a few extra questions. There was one asking if we would be able to, here at NCAI, review and give input on presentations to ensure the level of engagement and whether they would be exciting for audiences. And I know we would both be willing to do that. So if anyone has a desire to send in their presentations and give us a preview, we're happy to give some support and feedback. Go ahead.
And the teleconferences are a really great space for that too. We want you guys to connect with each other across the panels so that you can kind of see how your presentations, at least we envision them speaking to each other. But that's a space if that's too much pressure to send something beforehand, we understand. But if you could send something before that teleconference, that would be a perfect time for us to engage with you around some of that too. So absolutely.
So we do have another question. How many participants do we expect on Sunday? So again, just to clarify, Sunday is the pre-meeting, Tuesday is the TLSF Tribal Leaders Scholar Forum. So
yeah, so I would say it's going to be very much like a breakout session, so anywhere from between 40 to 100 or so. We've averaged between 40 and 50 to date. And it just depends on the site, on the location and whatnot. But we're doing a lot more this year on social media, and our local planning committee has been fabulous, so we do expect a good turnout. So I'd say about 50 right now is what we're expecting, but we'll see.
And for those who are doing the pre-conference on Sunday, that's why we think it's particularly important for if you'd like to present a poster on the day of the Tribal Leaders Scholar Forum on Tuesday, please let us know. It does give you access to the broader audience, upwards of 800 attendees to the forum itself. So please do be in contact if that's of interest. And speaking of the poster session, we do have a question about that. It was mentioned that we have the one during the lunch hour from noon to 1 p.m. There was some question about whether or not we are expected/required to have a poster presented in the evening session also, or were posters assigned to either lunch or dinner session. So we're gonna clarify that right now.
Yep. So no, you're not required to be at the evening session. We just thought it would be a nice opportunity for those who maybe wanted to have further engagement with that. And no, we haven't assigned. We're keeping it open to either or both. We just wanted to make sure, sometimes, we're going to do our very best to set up the posters where there's going to be maximum traffic, following the General Assembly, but we just, wanted to make sure people didn't feel like, they didn't get as much exposure to the poster ideas. And so we're still working on what that evening reception is going to look like. We've kind of gone back and forth. At first, we were expecting it to be this TED Talk event, but now we're looking at it may actually be the cultural night, a cultural event that the local planning committee is planning. So again, we're just looking at our agenda and finding out, what's going to be the best situation, but we just wanted to give you folks as much exposure. So not required, just an opportunity.
If we register for the whole event, what is our involvement on like Monday or things like that?
So on Monday, you're welcome to attend. There will be other breakout sessions and a general assembly, very much the same structures we will have on Tuesday. So a big opening meeting. They'll be usually on the main stage. Rather than a panel, it will be different agencies and different representatives from organizations giving reports and updates to the membership. So you're welcome to sit in and attend that. So the agenda will be posted here soon and updated regularly as we get closer. And then in the afternoons, we'll have there'll be breakout sessions again, 2.5 hours, and you're welcome to attend those. And then there'll be committee meetings. So you're welcome to attend all of those things if you register. We do tend to have regional meetings early in the mornings, and you're welcome to attend those. They may be less pertinent. I mean, if you're curious about what's going on in a particular region, but that is usually where the elected tribal leadership has an opportunity to engage with their region on some of the resolutions and policy work that they're planning for annual. So yeah, all of the sessions are open unless designated in the agenda that they're by invitation only, and those would normally be things like consultations and things like that. So most of our events are open to all registrants. Other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask a question via the phone here too.
Great.
Just in terms of the presentations, one sense that I'm getting is that you're encouraging us to use our PowerPoint slides strategically and not necessarily overwhelm everyone with a large number of slides. Would there be a sense and a strategy of submitting by June 5th a set of slides that are a little bit more in detail, but when it comes to the presentation, maybe not showing all of the slides?
Sure. Yeah, we could do, we could include on the app and somehow maybe in the title, designate, something like for presentation and then for reference or something like that. That might have, additional resources and information for folks who would like more in-depth information. Be more than happy to do that. We haven't actually had anybody ask or propose that in the past, but absolutely, we often will have participants say, this was really, it whet my appetite, where can I get more information? So yeah, we'd love to include kind of a version for presentation versus a version for reference.